The transparency, the openness, the communication is more than you could expect. I'm sold.
Don't let the fact that you don't know something or don't know enough about something hold you back.
I knew I wanted to invest. What better way to invest than to invest in what I already know that I love, which is real estate?
It was initially the 12% return, but it quickly turned into the people.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Multifamily Masterclass. I'm Bart Diehl, and today I'm joined by two incredible guests, Jamison Manwaring and Heidi Butler. We have a pretty awesome slate today. We got some great topics we're going to discuss. The first topic we're going to start off with is political, and we're going to talk about what happens when you scrap rent control. The next thing we're going to get into is we're going to talk about how multifamily construction is jumping off a cliff. Then we're going to play a game. This is a new segment called Saves and Shares, probably only 1 week segment. And then finally, we're going to discuss why Arizona is so hot. So we're going to have a good podcast today, and I'll dive right into it. The first article is an article by the Wall Street Journal, and it's titled, Argentina Scrapped Its Rent Control, Now the Market is Thriving. So just to read a little snippet from the article. For years, Argentina imposed one of the world's strictest rent control laws. Now the country's new president, Javier Milei, has scrapped the rent caps, along with most government price controls, and a fiscal experiment that he is conducting to revive South America's biggest economy. So President Biden recently called for some rent increases to be capped at 5% annually, and Vice President Kamala Harris said that if elected president, she will take on corporate landlords and cap unfair rent increases. So before we dive into the results of getting rid of rent caps, and I know we discussed this on one of our previous podcasts, but Jamison, can you touch on some of the potential negative consequences of having rent caps in place?
So since we're multifamily owners and investors, surprise, surprise, we don't like rent control. And that's kind of a given. And just to talk about a couple of the common forms of rent control is putting a cap on increased rents. Typically, that's done at the local level. Mm-hmm. And New York has always been the most famous place that had some rent control. But it was in certain properties, certain neighborhoods, that as gentrification grew in an area that had typically been more affordable and more people started moving there and the rents went up, the government said, wait a second, we need to protect some of the prices. And I think that it's actually comes from a good place to try to keep rent from doubling in a year, going up 50%, and having only affordable people who live in a certain neighborhood. And I can tell you, when I lived in Manhattan, most of the more blue-collar workers did not live in the city. They would come to the city to work, and they would live in New Jersey. They would live upstate New York. They would take a train in, train out. But they were not living in the city, and it's just too expensive. So that's one of the places where we tried rent controls. And then the thing that the rent controls equated to there is the other term is slumlord.
Yeah.
And what that basically meant was the slumlord, instead of landlord, they didn't have any capital to reinvest in maintenance, in improvements on the building, so they just kept it the way that it was. And because the people lived there and had rent control, they were never going to move out. So it became the situation where the landlord said, I'm not doing anything, and the people living there said, we'll just keep living here.
Yeah.
And the way that those rent control worked for in many situations is you could pass it to your family. But if you moved out, the new landlord could rent it at a higher rate to someone else. So there was another incentive for the owner to stop making improvements so that it kind of forced the person who's living there to move out. So it ended up, it's been a mixed bag there. There's reasons why some control around rent makes sense. Like if everything is totally free market without any government intervention, it probably goes a little crazy. But we have seen some states, Oregon is one of the most famous one that has a statewide rent control that came in a few years ago. And what's ended up happening is the same thing that Argentina saw. People, instead of renting their house, they would do other things with it because they didn't want the government restricting rent. So when Argentina, more recently with this new president, and this new president's doing a lot of stuff, not in all of it's good, but this is one thing that was definitely an experiment because Argentina's economy has been a mess, like 50% inflation and then deflation, other things. So with this approach, they pulled rent control off, and it's saying that rents now have gone down by 40% because they've seen a 140% increase in the number of available units.
Yeah.
Because people say, oh, let's rent our place. Let's do something with it rather than have it sit vacant or have it as a second home, because now we can get a market rate for it.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime the government is going and regulators are going to set prices, it's a disincentive for the owner or the seller to participate, because they want a market price. They want to say, I want to rent this for what this is really worth. This has been a great thing for everyone in Argentina. So they're down 40% rent. A lot of folks in Buenos Aires unable to afford rent, and now they can, moving back to the city. This is a good thing. And it's another example of where, something that was initially trying to keep rent in a certain price range didn't really work. Those things work for a little while, and then you have to come back and revisit them. And then when you revisit them, you might have to re-scrap it and do something else. And that's what's happened here, and it's resulting in good things for renters there.
Yeah, that's South America's second biggest economy, and they were struggling, and now they have a rental market boom, which is awesome. It's good for them.
Yeah, and if you think about consumer is about 2/3 of the U.S. economy,
Mm-hmm.
the biggest expense for consumers is housing. So 2/3 of our economy is consumer, 1/3 is business. And if you take that bigger 2/3 and you say typically it's 40% of that consumer is spending their income on rent, it affects a lot of things. So now what they're seeing is their rent's gone down. Now they have more capital to spend on other things, and that sort of move is a big move for a consumer that now is able to have a little bit of a hopeful tailwind behind them to say, oh, we got more money in our pocket, let's spend it. So it's going to ripple through the economy. It already is, and that's what the article is saying is you move something that big like housing down that much, there's going to be positive impact across the board.
So I want to hear what your thoughts are specifically in regards to the Phoenix economy and just the U.S. economy, because I know we're talking about Argentina. It is a little bit of a different game there. We obviously want to be considerate of renters. We don't want to price gouge. We don't want to be unfair, but we also want to protect landlords like ourselves. How do we find that balance? And do you think in the U.S. we need government regulations to help with that?
Nobody wants to protect landlords in the political conversation.
Sure.
Yeah.
Landlords are kind of, you're on your own. And that's, landlords are typically going to have some net worth, when there's natural disasters, when there's different things that happen on property. And landlords got to be able to take care of it. The government just kind of says, we're going to let you do your thing and you're going to handle it. And so that's kind of where we start at, is just to know that if anything, the government wants to put more restrictions around landlords, they're not going to help out.
Yeah.
They're not going to be able to pass any sort of nationwide rent cap. Without getting into the weeds, part of what Biden's proposal was going to be is that you would have some sort of tax penalty if you did raise rents over 5%. And then there's that would have to go through a lot of stages of, is that something the federal government can do? It's really done at the local level, state, or even more
state level,
more frequently the city level.
Do you think, like, with that, then landlords should be able to justify what the increase is? Like, they should have data points to prove it, or repair costs that were kind of to back up the rent increase? Or do you think it's really between the landlord and the renter, and no official should be involved in it? It's
really supply and demand. It really comes back to, what will someone pay for this unit? And in a free market economy, they have the choice to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
They have many options in Phoenix if they're looking for a particular apartment. And so a very broad macro issue, and that's why we saw rent increases in 2021 of 20%, because more people valued their home and they wanted to move into nicer places, and it drove things up. So it's like if you're a oil company and you're producing oil, you cannot control the price of oil. It's a huge supply and demand factor that's driving that, and then you basically price a price of oil. You don't price it below. You price it at the price of oil, and oil's a little easier to know because there's always a price every day of what is a barrel cost. But when you're renting, you're going to rent it for as high as you can, and then if you can't rent it, you lower it until you can rent it.
I think one of the things that's interesting, kind of going a little bit more about our company specific, we are very fortunate to have such a variety of units in different price ranges, so we are able to accommodate different, it kind of meet people where they're at on what they can afford and offer them apartments at each level. That is a benefit for us as landlords, be your venture residences to do, but I know there's a lot of conversations around price gouging.
Well, there is an issue right now that the Justice Department went after some very big corporate landlords, and that's what Kamala's talking about. They were using a software that was pricing the units, and they were all using that software. And so there was a bit of a price fixing going on there because they controlled a large portion of the market in some markets. So, if you could think of, okay, if all of the Chevrons and Circle K's got together and they were price fixing, that'd be an issue because they could take the price up.
Way up.
So I think that that's the right move for the Justice Department to come in and say, hey, you can't do that for large corporate landlords who have many units. You can't all price the same. You need to let the market play itself out, because if they price fix, that's the government's job. Come in and not allow those types of things. And then I think more locally in Phoenix, I like what's happening in Phoenix Metro. Each city's a little different, but the city of Phoenix has been very forward thinking about where the city is going. It's growing. We know we have 100,000 people who move here every year. We need more housing units for them. So the city council, the mayor of Phoenix, they have been pro-development. They want more apartments coming in. They're okay tearing down a couple old houses and building a couple hundred units. That's what you want out of a government in an area like this, because that's what's going to ultimately keep rent stable.
Yeah, and while we're on the topic of keeping rent stable and new units coming on the market, I want to pivot to our next topic, which is multifamily construction is jumping off a cliff. And this is LinkedIn commentary by economist Jay Parsons. So let's talk about it. For people watching on YouTube, we'll show a graph, but in 2024 year to date, we've completed 168,800 more units than we've started. That's the largest gap since tracking began in 1968. So I know we just talked about all that new supply coming on has kept rents flat, kept it competitive, but what else does this mean for multifamily operators and investors?
Yeah, and if you look at the graph, it's striking. It is falling off of a cliff. This is not new news today. We've been talking about this for a year, and we are in a cyclical industry, which means when interest rates were really low, a lot of construction was planned, started, locked in rates on construction loans, and then it takes 2 or 3 years on that conveyor belt for all that stuff to get completed before it's done. And it's starting to get done. This article that we're talking about discusses how a lot of that's supposed to be done at the end of the year. In Phoenix, we've already started to see an increase in rent, increase in occupancy. So a lot of times they're looking at data that's 2 or 3 months old, and we're on the ground, so we're seeing it in real time, and we're already starting to see that within our company.
Wow. That's
because we knew that once this cycle of new construction got completed, because of this drastic increase in interest rates, 4.5%, 5% in a short amount of time, construction stopped. The conveyor belt 2 years ago stopped, and there's nothing going to be new following it. That's the data now is supporting that, but we knew that would happen. And this is the industry. You can see by the chart, this is very common. So as an investor and an apartment owner, you have to be able to get through the harder times. The last 2 years have been a hard time for multifamily. Values have come down. Rents have been flat. They haven't gone down, but they've been flat. And you typically want to see an increase. You want to see a 4, 5, 6% increase. They've been flat. Now, as an investor and an owner, you want to think, where are we heading from here? And what this chart tells you, if you're interested in housing, is rents are going to be moving up because there's not going to be enough new supply to meet the demand for people who need those houses in the next 2-3 years.
Which means values are going to go up. And, if I'm an investor in 4 to 5 years, if I miss out on this window to invest, I'm probably going to be pretty upset.
Yeah, and I think it really does depend on the market. One of the comments here from Holly says, here in Boise, our market is oversaturated with apartment homes, leading to dropped rates, big specials, and high availability. Going a couple years without a ton of new builds will give us a chance to catch up and fill apartment homes. when new demographics come into the market. So there are going to be some that aren't going to. I mean, Phoenix is a great example
Phoenix
of what
is
it
different,
needs.
yeah.
Yeah, but it just kind of depends on where you live.
There's also a perception thing where people who live there, and I don't know if this person's a developer or owns apartments, but there has been a softness because of all this new development.
Sure.
And it's a little disconcerting, you know, if you're used to 95, 100% occupancy and now it's 80% as an apartment owner. We saw that a year ago here. And so things have already gotten better, and they also do see all these new units being built, and they're like, even in my
When's it
small
gonna
town,
stop?
who's going to live in these? Who's
Yeah.
going to pay the $1,800 for rent for these places? And they're just kind of scratching their heads. But she's right in that all this supply now needs to get digested. And in a market, depending on the market, in Phoenix, it's already kind of been digested because we've seen such robust growth. And now we move into a time where rents are going to be moving up next year. They've been flat for a couple of years into 2025. And for a few years, rents are going to move up because of that supply demand.
Another comment that I really loved in this one, somebody said, I'll say it again, survive until 2025 and thrive in 2026 and 2027. Do we feel like that'll be Phoenix?
Survive was kind of to 2025. We've been saying that for a while now too. Phoenix, I think, maybe 6 months ahead, where we're kind of things have stabilized. But I think some of these markets, tertiary markets, Boise, Salt Lake, some of the more Midwest markets that have built a lot, it might take through next year for them to digest all of those. And the article that we're looking at is national data.
Yeah.
And real estate is always local. So you kind of take everything with a grain of salt nationally, and then you have to drill down if you're going to invest in a specific market and see what's happening there.
Great. Well, I want to jump into our next article, and it's by Globe Street, and it's titled Renters Prioritize Home-Like Amenities in Apartment Search. So this article starts off with, maybe it's because more renters are considering the long haul before they are able to buy a house, that they are now looking for amenities that more resemble a home as they scour the web for the perfect apartment. Zillow research reveals its priorities based on analysis of the shares and saves on Zillow rentals. It finds that potential renters who do either of these things, so save the listing or share it with a friend, are way more serious about their home search. So the game I want to play today, guys, is based on the data of what do you guys believe is getting more shares and saves?
Well, I'm going to, interesting thing, and then I want to play your game, but you mentioned Zillow.
Yeah.
So apartments.com does a lot of marketing. They have
Yep.
the guy from Jurassic Park, Jeff, whatever his name is.
Yep.
We know him. Really funky guy.
Like gold
Jeff
something?
Gold something.
Goldberg, Goldblum.
Jeff Goldblum. He's their spokesman. So you would think you got to be on apartments.com if you're renting. But if you're an apartment owner and you're listening, we'll tell you Zillow Rentals is way better than apartments.com.
This
It's
isn't a paid plug either. This is true data.
better. It's much lower cost. Nobody goes on apartments.com relative to Zillow. I don't know exactly why Zillow came in the last year and really started killing the market. So sorry, back to the game, but I think that's important because there are some buildings we looked at that are only on apartments.com and they're not leasing, and that's part of why.
Yeah. Separate from that, when I was looking for apartments in San Diego, we found ours through Zillow, not through apartments.com. And I feel like everything on apartments.com was like it was either priced way too high or it was a fake listing. So take that for what it is.
Yeah,
I'm trying to
they're
think
not
of your
going to like us
question
for
with
saying this.
Yeah.
But
With your question there, I'm trying to think of our neighborhood. We have a lot of duplexes and fourplexes where we live. The biggest one, and I do kind of know that it might be one of these here, but parking in our neighborhood specifically.
Well, let me get into the game, Heidi.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, then scratch
wait,
that.
All right.
Well, yeah. What's the game? Say it.
So basically, it's saves and shares. What do we think? I'm going to give two categories.
Perfect.
What do we think is getting more saves and shares? So the first category that's competing is turf area for pets or fitness centers. So when you're looking for rentals, which category is getting more saves and shares?
I'm going to go the pet area.
I'm going to go pet area.
And it's not even close. The turf area wins by over 76%
Wow.
in saves and 91% in shares.
And that's changed a lot because it used to be all about this fitness center you're going to get. Now people, you see these fitness centers, no one's in them.
Oh,
But
yeah.
the pet area is always bumping.
Yep.
Okay,
So we were right, though, right?
You
Yeah,
guys
we
were
were.
right. You guys won. You guys are 1 for 1.
I want to hear the ding, ding, ding.
All right, I'll do a ding, ding, ding. The next one is business centers versus a co-work space. And I'll clarify, business centers, it's a big room. It has desktops already there, so the computer's already there. Co-work space is a little bit different.
Kind of like a business center at a hotel where
Yeah.
you just come in and use.
You can project on your screen.
I don't know.
I'm going to definitely say co-work space because the people working remote have their own computer. They just want a space. They don't need a computer to use. I'm going to say co-work space.
I'm wondering if business centers are coming back. I'm going to go with business center. Be a little controversial.
All right, well, this guy clearly is a multifamily operator. Ding, ding, ding. Co-work spaces, obviously. The next one, putting greens versus pools.
In Phoenix, or is this a general market?
This is general market.
Okay. Man, there's a lot of maintenance with a pool, not a lot of maintenance with a putting green. So I'm going to go putting green. If you're in Phoenix, it's a pool. But in like a national market, it's going to be a putting green.
Big golf state, though.
Yeah, we are.
I'm going to say that pools, because the thing with putting green is there's few people who are actually going to use it.
Mhm.
And if they use it, they're not going to use it much. When you think of a pool, you can take your kids in it, families come out, like anyone can use a pool. Anyone can jump in a pool. Even those small apartment complexes, a lot of times we take the pool out because the cost doesn't make sense anymore for 20 units or 30 units. But at the big apartment complexes, pools are really important.
So surprisingly, putting greens won.
Whoa.
More saves and shares than pools.
Yeah.
The last
And
one.
I would say that's unique. If you
It
had a
is.
putting green, that
Yeah.
could be, if you're a putting green person, that would be cool.
Yeah. And the last one, off-street parking versus in-unit laundries.
Oh, man.
I made sure to make this one difficult.
In-unit laundries, hands down. I would always think, I don't want to I'll park wherever I need to park. I don't want to take my laundry anywhere else.
Yeah, I agree. I think laundry is something people are not negotiating anymore. I want to do it in my house. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay, so both those are winners, obviously. They both average a way higher save and share percentage on a daily basis than any of the other categories we just talked about. So, moral of the story is renters prioritize practical perks, and you can see this in all their shares and saves on Zillow.
The putting green is really interesting. That
Yeah.
kind of surprises me.
Yeah.
It's not common though.
Honestly, I think it's just half the year you don't want to get in a pool. So, like, all
Yeah.
year round, it makes more sense to have putting green, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, well, our last topic of the day is Arizona is hot, and I'm not talking about the temperature. We're adding some pretty exciting attractions. So we have two articles by the Phoenix Business Journal, and the first one is Cannon Beach nears completion as new entertainment users emerge. After more than 3 years in the making, Cannon Beach has added a wave of new retailers as it prepares to open to the public. Cannon Beach, located on 37 acres on the southeast corner of Power and Warner Roads, will include 500,000 square feet of retail, restaurants, a surf lagoon, a 17-foot cliff diving lagoon, and more. And there will be hotels on site. Jamison, I know you're a kite surfer, you're a surfer. Are you pretty excited about this place?
This is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never heard of a project like this. There's that old song, Oceanfront Property in Arizona. I'll sell you some oceanfront property in Arizona. And that's been one of the big reasons why, more people are attracted to California or Florida is because they have the beach. I think this is going to be a really successful project if they can execute well. I mean, there's a lot to something like this. I've been building it for 3 years, and the developer said, there's no blueprint for how you build a beach in a desert, along with all the other stuff that they're building. They're over $300 million for this project.
Wow.
So, I mean, this is a big project, but I can see it being the next level of a water park. There was a Big Sur here that was one of the early water parks in the 50s that was built, and they had this big wave pool and stuff. And if they can do it right, those places are packed. And I hope that they do this well. And I think for Arizona, if you're not familiar with Arizona, you come from another state, this is just indicative of the kind of things that are happening in Arizona. If you have an idea like this that's cool, you can get money from investors, $300 million, to go build a beach park.
Yeah.
Not many places you can do that, but in Arizona, people say they get around it. And that's just the kind of thing that happens here that doesn't happen in many places. So I'm excited for it to open. They're opening this month. And I mean, this is going to be like a Disneyland.
Yeah. And another Disneyland, Pure Pickleball and Paddle beefs up plans for flagship location near Scottsdale. So Arizona's a big hub for pickleball. I think the whole world loves pickleball right now.
Man,
But there's a hub of fun entertainment off of Talking Stick Way in the 101. A new development is being proposed that will sit between Topgolf and the Odyssey Aquarium called Pier Pickleball and Paddle. Inside, there will be 48 pickleball courts, 2 paddle courts, which is apparently a different sport.
Yes.
There's also a space outside for 12 temporary courts, including a 5,000-person championship court. Also, there's a pro shop, full-service restaurant and bar, locker rooms, gyms, on-site childcare, office spaces, and a rooftop bar and lounge.
I mean, why
Yeah.
why would you want to live anywhere else that doesn't do this kind of stuff? And everything seems to be around Talking Stick and the 101.
Yeah.
So there's like a skydiving area over there. There's the Diamondback spring training there. There's Top Golf there. And now this is going to be there. There's an aquarium. This is
It's a great area.
it's amazing the type of stuff that we're doing here.
Yeah, why wouldn't people want to move here, including Californians? So while we're on the topic of Arizona being so hot, we have so many people moving to Arizona from California. LA Times believes that new residents from California may affect Arizona state politics. So more than 74,000 people in 2022 moved to Arizona from California. That's more than a quarter of the people who moved to Arizona that year, and easily the most from any state. So obviously California has been a blue state, and Arizona has been primarily red, maybe a little bit pink in the past few years. Purple, yeah. Do you guys think this influx of California residents will be enough to swing Arizona to blue?
I mean, we were close last election, so
We were blue
Yeah,
last
we were
time.
blue
yeah.
last election.
So I mean, I don't think it's gonna hurt if you're leaning towards blue.
Yeah, it's definitely happening.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about 100,000 people, 75,000 people just from California, and California is about 65-70% Democratic.
Yeah.
So we're going to get a disproportionate amount of people who move here from there, and it's changing the demographic. So we used to be a solidly red state. Both of our senators were Republican, McCain, Kyle, McCain, and whoever was before Kyle. It was always two Republicans, and now we had two Democrats, one that went independent, Sinema, but we've turned blue, and it is where Trump and Kamala are here all the time. You can't watch TV without seeing their advertisements all over because we're right on that borderline, but we are definitely going toward a more blue state here. There's just no doubt about it because much of our migration comes from California. And the other thing is the people who live here from California, they're not really well received here from a lot of the people.
Don't Arizona, my California. That's the saying.
That's the saying.
Yeah.
Don't Arizona, my California. And
Or it's actually opposite. Don't California, my Arizona.
yeah, don't California,
Yeah.
my Arizona. I've seen that bumper sticker. And people who have lived here a long time, they don't want things to change. You know, it goes back to the same debate, even politically. Do you want things to stay the same, or are they going to change? And things are definitely changing here. So we are right in the hot seat of who's going to decide this election.
Yeah.
And it might not be the same as 4 years ago. The demographics are different. But if you take this thing 20 years out, we're probably going to be a pretty solidly blue state, just like California is.
What's weird is when I talk to people from California that moved here recently, and it's more frequent than you think. I talk to a lot of people that move here from California. It's the consensus is I got tired of the politics in California. It got way too expensive to live. Too many homeless people in my community. So without asking, it seems like maybe there's a little bit of political shift from California to Arizona. But even so, we'll see how the election turns
And it
out.
could be a political mindset, just kind of like the group that you're associated with in California. It might be really heavily blue, and they want to be in a more of a purple state where they can have conversations from both sides of the fence.
Well, because even people who are more democratic aren't real happy with the stuff you mentioned in California.
Yeah.
With the homelessness, with the lack of government tackling that. But I think you're right. It's people who are more attracted to Arizona might be a bit more center or more on the right.
Yeah.
But we have always been red through the 90s, and we're shifting over. There's also people moving here from other states outside of California, but as more people move from the northern states down south, southern states have always tended to be more conservative. Northern states tended to be more liberal, northern and coastal, and they're coming down south, and it's changing the demographics. When you look at an election that's determined by a few states, it's really going to matter. Thank you for listening to our podcast, The Multifamily Masterclass. Please subscribe to get all of our new episodes.